Hi, and welcome to the August Forum. I'm your host, Andrew, and I'll be sharing the stories of fashion industry professionals, creatives, and entrepreneurs about their journeys and experiences as they advance within this ever-growing industry. The August Forum, as an extension of the shop itself, allows you to have the ability to listen to those in the space. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, trying to break into the fashion industry, or just curious about the ins and outs, we hope these stories will help you to achieve your goals. In this episode, I have the privilege of having this conversation with Dionte Johnson, owner of sneaker and streetwear staple Soul Classics, founder of Look Ma No Hands, and co-founder of Canvaas Consulting. From playing football at The Ohio State University to writing his own children's book, Dionte is a creative entrepreneur who has established himself as a true professional in the industry. During my conversation with Dionte, we not only touched on the journey and trajectory, but his insight as a leader and mentor in his organizations. We gained his insight in the retail space and how to thrive in a competitive current market. From his anecdotes to his takes and perspectives, this conversation was truly enthralling. I believe you will find it equally engaging. This is the August Forum. Today's episode, I am joined by owner of Soul Classics, geez, Dionte Johnson. Dionte, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to have you on the pod. Right before we started recording, I was just telling Dionte, I'm like, we got Rob, we got Matt, now we got you. Like, it's like a little Midwest trio right now.
Absolutely. Midwest sticks together for sure. So
Before we get started, do you want to introduce a little bit of who you are, what you do, not even just Soul Classics, like everything else you do, honestly?
for me, that would be biting off and chewing a lot. I'm Dionte Johnson. I'm owner of Soul Classics. That's what majority of people know me as. I played football at Ohio State, which I'm sure we'll tap into. Very, creative oriented. So we have a branding and consulting firm called Canvaas Consulting. Wrote a children's book. Like I tap into a lot of different things at all times. I'm a little chaotic when it comes to the things that I do, but above all, just husband, father. Enjoy doing those things the most. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm sure we're going to tap in a little bit more as this interview progresses.
The first thing I remember is Rob sent me your Instagram, and the first thing I saw is your bio with all the different like handles of like all the things that you're kind of tapped into, and it's like you really let yourself spread out. I think that's like, is that something you agree upon, that like you want to dive into more than you kind of let on right away?
Yeah, man, like it's crazy because it's a gift and a curse. I'm very hands-on. If I see an issue, I'm going to find a solution for it. So that's how a lot of this stuff starts. But it's just being passionate about trying new things. Like I think that's been the biggest blessing in my life is as an adult, I've been able to dabble into different things and we found success, found wins, found, learn from losses and continue to just progress forward. So, it definitely is a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go by the handles in the bio alone, like it's like eight things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis.
I was like, look, you go to one, and then you like look through that, and you're like, oh, shoot, I gotta go to another one to go look at that for a little bit too. But we are a fashion and culture podcast, of course. I gotta ask you the old question of what have you been wearing recently, and what have you been listening to recently?
Oh man! So recently, the crazy thing is the Diodora V7000 is one of their runners. So I put them on just to have something to be cozy, but I haven't been able to take them off. They're probably one of the most comfortable shoes that I own. Plus, those I recently went over there and got a chance to check out their headquarters and their warehouse where they manufacture a lot of their made in Italy product. And I will say it was phenomenal. It was definitely a game changing experience. But those have been on my feet lately. Music wise, man, I'm still stuck on that Kendrick. I know I got to give that Gunna a listen. I've been hearing great things about it. So that's going to be next up in the rotation.
Yeah, I was gonna say it just came out maybe a couple days ago only, that new
Yeah,
Gunna album. Yeah. What was that new song Kendrick and Baby Keem did, Hillbillies?
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been listening to
Big
that
Kendrick fan,
nonstop.
so I'm a little bit biased on that standpoint. That last project was phenomenal. Everything he does, usually touches gold. So
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see his like growth and his progression as like an artist too, from his like earlier works to now who he is now and what he's doing now. He's like, I feel like expanded his creativity and like dived into like, just expanded on the genre itself, honestly, which is cool.
what's wild is he did a meet and greet at the shop, like
Yeah,
right when Section 80 dropped, like right
really.
before thing. Yeah, yeah. So it was like right around that same time window because I have a homie that was doing an event together at the time called Animal House, who booked him for a show at Scully's, which is like right down the street from the shop. So it's just crazy to see the growth because like from that moment, it's kind of like locked in and you saw the journey from then on. Of course, now you can't booking for a meet and greet or a small joint, but it's just dope to have that connection.
That's dope. That's so sick. I mean, I think that's what's so cool about what you do, and something we'll talk about is like you'll tap into the community. You like are really involved in the community in Columbus, and with all your works, like you allow people to kind of have that platform. And even if it's something crazy like Kendrick even doing a meet and greet to like the next Arab program with Lukman No Hands, like there's so many different things that you do, like allow people to have a platform with. But before we get into all that, man, we gotta ask you, like, what has been your journey? What have been like, give me a brief overview of like what has taken you all the way to who you are right now.
Yeah, so the crazy thing is I've been involved in fashion in some way, shape, or form since like middle school, high school. So there was a mom and pop shop here called Big Daddy's that that's where I got my first job at. Sweeping the floors, probably wasn't supposed to be working. I probably was there at 14 or something like that. So the owner of it was a friend of my father's. They haven't seen each other in years, and once he found out, he let me start wiping the windows and stuff like that. So all I really knew was retail. I
Mhm.
go and I played football at Ohio State. Thought I was going to play this long 14-year NFL career, then come back and eventually own a shoe store. And when I was cut short, like I came home, trying to figure it out, trying to, I was interviewing places and doing all that stuff. And I heard that they were selling Soul Classics.
Mhm.
So at the time, I had shopped there while I was in college, so I already knew about it. But when I found out they were selling it, I just decided to jump off the deep end and go after it. So, those guys did a good job. Like they had it for like 2.5 years, 3 years or something like that, kind of setting the ground roots. And this was like 2009, 2010-ish, where I kind of took it over and we've been sprinting ever since then. So it's been a journey, man. Retail is, I'm sure everybody attests to it, man. Retail is every day you got to wake up ready to have a full boxing match. You ask somebody how it's going today, it's incredible. You ask them again tomorrow, it'll be like, this is the worst idea I've ever had. So it's been a lot of years of that journey, but I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
I was gonna say 13 years, man. Congratulations, honestly. That is a big feat. It's crazy because it's a theme that I've heard from many other people that I've talked to, where it's just like, you are waking up and battling because you don't know what it's gonna look like today. You don't know what it's gonna look like tomorrow, even like a month from now. But I mean, the one thing I want to ask you about, which is very unique to you, and I know most people when they look you up can like find out about you, is that you did play football at the Ohio State University. You not only did you play just fullback, you captained the team and you brought them to an NCAA appearance, right? Was it when college football playoffs was a thing, or was it?
Nope, it wasn't playoffs. It was just strictly BCS. My last game was at LSU, lost in the national championship, but we still battled the odds and made it there because that year was interesting. We weren't supposed to make it that far, so testament to those guys and everybody that said we couldn't.
What was that like to captain that team? Especially like a team that you said just now was like it's a bunch of underdogs. No one expected you guys to even be there.
Yeah, man. I think my experience at Ohio State is something that you kind of take for granted when you're younger. You don't even realize the lessons that you're learning early out. Like to be able to be selected as a captain, first and foremost, means that you have to trust and respect of your peers and your
Hmm.
coaches. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
and staff and everybody involved. So, a lot of those qualities that I believe that earned me that title are the same things I embody today. Like you brought up community, and we do this thing, we do this without thinking, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not a show or for any type of accolades. It's just,
Hmm.
we're embodying who we are. So my goal is to continue to be some type of leader that, hopefully can carve it and open up paths for everybody else, either goes before me or comes after me. But the football thing, man, it was a blessing. Like, being an athlete, you look at things differently. Your work ethic is always going to be there. So my mentality was like, okay, well, if I can do that much or endure that much physically to achieve a goal, why can't I do the same thing in retail? Why can't I do the
Right.
same thing in other areas of life? Like, all right, if I'm first to the gym or last to leave, that's the same mentality that I try to take into every day that I go to work.
Yeah, and I was gonna say my question really was gonna be like, how do you apply that today? But do you find yourself like as kind of a mentor to the people at the shop? Like, do you try to instill that same mentality that you try to instill to your team basically when you're a captain?
Yeah, you try to. What I'm realizing now at the grand old age of 36, I'll be 37. So everybody acts like it's old around the shop, but people have to have their own experiences. And
Right.
and the best thing you could do as a leader is give them the tools and the resources to make, the decisions that they want to make. I think that when you try to force feed or you try to carve somebody's path for them, they naturally just buck and go against the grain. And the best thing that you could be is a resource. You could be there to allow people to know your journey. When people know your journey and they can gravitate towards it or they can relate to it, they either choose to gravitate towards it or go to run away from it. So that's, I think, my best quality now as a leader compared to, if you'd asked me in my 20s, is not trying to force anything. Allow people
Right.
to grow and learn and develop, and then you be there when they need you.
Right, right. So that's kind of like you're just there. Again, how you just said, like you're there when they need you, basically, and you kind of try from then when they need you, you then become that leader, and then you kind of show them different paths that they can go on. But not only, we kind of talk about at Soul, like we've been talking a little bit more and touching base on Soul Classics, but again, you talked about how you have Canvas. You also founded on Look Bond No Hands. Like, how do you kind of like balance all those things while still being a husband, while still being a father, while still being, your son's like football coach? Like, how do you do all that in a day-to-day basis?
Well, right now, man, I have to take my hat off to the team because
Hmm.
it's impossible. Like, don't get it twisted. I love everything that I do, but it's impossible to be 100% everywhere. So, some things fall by the wayside, but as a leader, you have to empower people to be able to make decisions on your behalf.
Right.
And I will say that, like, Soul Classes is it's in a place that I wouldn't have imagined 10 years ago.
Mm.
It doesn't need me as much as it used to. It still does, and we're still working on that day to day. However, I don't have to be involved in social media for it to be successful or involved in planning. We just had a whole Juneteenth activation. I just had to show up. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm.
this was probably our heaviest activation lift that we've ever done as far as budget and partners and all that different type of stuff. So, now that we're carving out teams that can handle different things and people are excited and passionate about what they do, it frees you up to be able to work from a high level and put things in winning position.
Right. Did you expect that 13 years ago when you first bought Soul Classics that you would be in a
Nah,
position now?
I was just trying to survive like that. I mean, that's still to this day the same mentality. But when I bought the store, it was just something to do. It was cool. It was sneakers. It kept me from having to interview at Nationwide, or get a job at Nationwide. No knock to Nationwide, but yeah,
No knock.
but my perspective is completely different than it was 10 years ago, 13 years ago.
Right. So your team basically at Soul Classics to help you out and kind of support you to be able to look at everything in a more higher level and kind of not reorient your focus to different things, but make sure that you're giving your energy to those other things in your life that need your focus, basically.
Yeah, I would say they're not going to go far without a strong team. So kind of
Right.
constantly empowering them, building those trust levels to where, people understand their role and they value it and they appreciate it or, love it. That's how I'm learning. I'm not going to even act like I haven't mastered. That's what I'm learning is the most important piece.
I mean, it's retail at the end of the day, so you gotta keep reorienting, keep pivoting. But what is that team structure there looking like? Do you just have certain groups of people focusing on certain things, or how does that kind of work out for you?
So the younger me would have laughed at the older me, but we really are becoming more and more structured. People have titles, people have roles. There's a head at each team because there has to be somebody who's held accountable. So yes, there's like everything from product manager to shipping manager, the stock shop manager. We have a lead buyer, like all that different type of stuff. All those things kind of work, together. You know what I'm saying in
Hmm.
order to make the greater picture work. But within those, there are smaller teams and there are people who just contribute in whatever way they can. But for the most part, we have a tier board or hierarchy board or whatever like that we actually use and have been implementing.
Right. And then for you, is it like you were meeting then with those managers to kind of be making sure that everything is kind of running smoothly and kind of making sure that everyone's role is kind of known and established and responsibilities basically like delegated in a way?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. We meet as managers regularly, and then it's structured once a month, and then we also have our one-offs and stuff like that. But more important, I mean, it's still retail. Like there's still everybody knows that there is a strike that comes out that we just found out about tomorrow that we got to plan for. Or
Right.
I like to tell everybody that says they want to be an entrepreneur, like especially if you want to get in this world. Everybody was like, "Yo, I want to be an entrepreneur because I want to be my own boss," and I was like, "Yeah, that's cool." We have like 58 bosses. Every brand we carry
Yep.
has, what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, I'm my own boss, but I got 58 more bosses. Like, are you sure that's the life that you want? But yeah, it's structured in that regards. Like everybody has their tasks and they're checking them off or not checking them off, but we got
Right.
things to measure it by.
Sometimes it's so funny, like open up a box and you see a shoe and then you realize that it drops tomorrow and you got to get it ready for the
Bruh,
release tomorrow. That's always a fun little thing to play around with.
these moving release days gonna kill us all.
It's like all these release dates, like, man, sometimes our group chat is always like, oh, I thought they released like in 2 weeks. And it's like, no, they release like in 2 days. It's like, you never know when anything releases anymore,
Too
honestly.
much to follow. Like I said, you have to follow from all these different brands. You know what I'm saying? Like you have
Right.
to be on top of it for everything, and there's always going to be room for it to fall between the cracks. But that's normal in the world that we're in.
And that's what makes it so different, where it's just a kind of brand store, and like a flagship store in comparison to an actual retail space. Because again, you're managing not only 30, 40 different brands, but you're also managing like 30, 40 different relationships. It's like you got to make sure that everyone's happy and no one's upset, because at the end of the day, you don't want to cut those ties, because, that's kind of how you basically make money in a way,
Yep, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I don't even have to reiterate that one. You got 30 people that you're trying to keep happy, or 50 people that you're trying to keep happy, and again, play by their rules, yet carve out your own space. So it's
Right.
very easy to get lost in it, I will say.
Hmm.
If you're trying to channel everybody else's identity but your own,
Right.
very easy to play catch up with that. I think the people who are able to survive long periods of time are those who are able to carve out their own identity,
Right.
above every other brand that they carry. But it's a tough thing to accomplish.
My conversation with Dionte was truly an exciting experience, and one that I'm grateful we are able to share. What made this interaction so unique was Dionte's engagement as he discusses his journey and perspective of being in the retail space. His answers were true and enthralling. During my interaction with Dionte, we got to learn about his journey, as he thought his journey and path would lead him to playing long-term football in the NFL, but due to injuries, he was never able to realize that path. But through there, he had the opportunity to purchase Soul Classics, setting him on the trajectory to establish Soul Classics as a Midwest sneaker staple and the powerhouse of a retail space within the industry. Our conversation further engages in how he operates as a leader and mentor, from having different creative entrepreneurial pursuits to even coaching his son's football team. Dionte is someone who trusts in his team to get the job done so he can focus on what is important to him. Our attention then shifted towards exploring the genesis of Look Ma No Hands, a nonprofit organization that Dionte started, and his love for not only the organization, but the programs he and his team were able to provide for these kids. We learn about how he leads programs to allow inner city kids to explore with no boundaries. Before we keep moving into Soul Classics, I do want to talk about Look Ma No Hands, which is a nonprofit organization you founded in 2008, which empowers you to envision, basically the mission statement is empowering youth to envision a world without boundaries. Could you talk about the inception of the nonprofit and what led you to start this?
So I started looking on my hands before everything else. So my senior year in college is when all this nonprofit work started. So 2 years before I got Soul Classics, this was already in motion. So, at a younger age, I've always kind of valued the idea of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in 2008, I didn't imagine what it would become now and have a clear vision for it. I'm a firm believer that, you only know what you know. For our teens and the young people that are coming up today, especially inner city, if you expose them to better, naturally you're going to want to be better. You're going to want to accomplish better. You're going to want to see better. I've seen so many kids that I've coached, or former teammates, peers, their lives change once they got on the team and began to travel, or got a mentor who took them out of the city or something like that, or start learning
Right.
about different careers. If you don't know that you can't be anything other than a doctor, lawyer, and a plumber, and they don't fit your personality, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with those professions, but they don't fit your personality, you kind of give up hope. And that's kind of like
Right.
what our mission is right now, is to make sure that we're helping people find hope through exploration,
Mm-hmm.
in whatever way, shape, or form we can. So if you know that now, people come up to me all the time like, yo, I want to own a shoe store. And I used to, you give them the generic answer, like, you can, obviously. Yeah, that's true. But
Yeah.
me and you both know it's not very easy to get a Nike account. Like, you can't just walk in and say, Nike, I want to open up down the street. Like, it's not going down. So I used to always feel like I was lying to kids. But then I realized people are not asking me, they're not saying they want to own a shoe store because they literally want to own a shoe store. They don't know what other careers exist in this world.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you think about the other 1,000 jobs at Adidas or whatever like that, you can go and be that. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Right.
can get in this world without having to sell the shoes or make the shoes or be the guy that gets endorsed. So that's my soapbox. If y'all want to learn more about looking on the hands, please tap in with me because I will talk about this all day long. But that's my baby. That's the passion. Uh, that's what I'm going to be doing long after I'm done selling sneakers. So, uh, yeah, we got to help these kids know that they can do other things other than what they're exposed to.
Right. And that's like, again, the big one I really wanted to talk about is that Next Era program where, again, you partner up with Vans to allow these inner city kids to explore what it's like to work for a shoe company. And not only, are they learning just about the basics of business, but they also get to explore what paths in this business do they want to pursue. And then from there, it's how long is the program? It's a couple
Six
months, right?
months. 6
6
months.
months.
Yeah, it's
Right.
a long one, man. It's definitely like school. So the kids come twice a week. Both sessions are just 2 hours, actually. It's not enough time to get it all done, but for somehow, way, shape, or form, we always seem to make it. But they come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, spend 2 hours with us, and basically they learn. Most of the times they're presented by somebody from Vans.
Hmm.
So what I think is kind of the coolest part that I don't think all the way hits everybody, especially that young. Like, we take freshmen to juniors,
Hmm.
and each week or, each time that somebody presents, their first task is to give them their career path. Because, like, if you're just introduced to the CMO of Vans, you're like, oh, well, I can't just become a CMO. And it's like, nah, but
Right.
that he started at Dunkin' Donuts. And from Dunkin' Donuts, this is what he did to get here and what he did to get there. Now you're like, oh,
Right.
that's attainable. And
Hmm.
although, yes, for a 15-year-old kid who hasn't had a job yet, it may not matter. But as you start to transition into the real world, you see
Right.
how valuable relationships are. You start to understand the layers of the onion that you peel back. And then it starts making things seem more attainable. So that's probably like my favorite part about the program. Like I said, we love it. They learn a ton of things, especially for everything from design, photography, everything in between. But those career paths, because I'm always intrigued. So I think they're going to help each one of them go far.
I was gonna say it's that visibility in that timeline
Yeah.
of someone coming in. It's just like being able to see where someone started and how they go and how they achieved to be something that you wanted to be. It's like that visibility and transparency. I feel like is so important because even at first, if you're, oh, I don't know if I can attain that, then as you move forward and you continue to build your own career, you start to realize how maybe similar but unique your own path to be able to achieve what you want to achieve is, and I think that's something so cool about that program is just showing kids that it's like, hey, this is possible if you want it.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then the last little bit I wanted to ask you this is like, do you have any like special stories from like maybe the Next Era program or even just like No Hands that you wanted to share that makes you feel like, wow, I'm so appreciative I keep doing this and I want to keep on doing this?
Man, there's not a single one. Like
Mhm.
I can touch on different things that allow you to know that you're on the right track, I should say. So along with Look My No Hands, like I was coaching high school football the past 14 years. You know what I'm saying? So like and I coach high school program that I graduated from right out of Columbus City schools. There are moments that kind of trigger light bulbs, like for things to go off. The Look My No Hands program from those kids wanting to spend extra time, like they're coming in on days that they don't have to be there. That means that they're learning, and these are kids. Some of the kids they struggle in school because they're not
Right.
interested. Yet they want to spend extra time with us because
Right.
it's a path that they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
You got football stories for days. I recently had a kid, we did a workshop for the Jordan 1 heirloom. And we did a workshop for them at the end of it to where they were able to hear panel discussion speakers from higher up ranking Nike and Jordan
Mm-hmm.
members. And I never forget that one of the kids came out the bathroom and he was like, hey man, that light cut on by itself when I went in there. That's fancy. And then my mind was like, hold on, like you haven't, what I'm saying? Like you haven't come across an automated, light switch. Like but you realize like, no, wait, not everybody had the same
Right.
opportunity. Not everybody has the same experiences. So you realize like those little things, now you can go home and you say, well, I want a light switch like that. Like,
Right.
it may seem so simple to you and I, but it really matters in a grand scheme of changing somebody's life. So I have 1,000 of those, you know what I'm saying? Like from kids who have far exceeded my expectations, disappointing stories as well to go along with
Mm-hmm.
it. But ultimately, like you see that kids are kids and they know what they know. And these are the people we're counting on to become leaders tomorrow. So we have to
Mm-hmm.
try to invest in them today.
Have any of them like come back to you post their years being like, man, thank you so much, seriously, like for helping, Have you had that?
300%. So So next year, the crazy thing about it is, like I said, it's freshmen to juniors. So this was literally our second year. So last year's class just graduated. So
Wow.
they're graduating, they're transitioning into college. So it still hasn't fully hit them like the real world just yet. You know what I'm saying? Some of them, everybody's on summer break right now. So they haven't
Right.
even started college yet. So that's going to be interesting as I see that start to unfold and see those things. But they come back. Like we've had several of them help, still volunteer. One of them
Right.
became an intern, a social media intern for us for the whole this past year. But football wise, like yes, all the time. Like I run into my guys in every way that you can imagine, and some of them say the same things. Like we wish we would listen. The other ones say that glad we did. And like I said, it lets you know that the work's not done.
During our discussion, it was great to hear Dionte talk about the Next Era program, a 6-month program to teach kids about exploration and how to find their own path, similar to Dionte, who had to find his path to where he is now. We delved into talk about Soul Classics, not only as a business, but as a brand, and ensuring that it represents the values that have made it so successful today, and how to continue to push the boundaries of retail and the industry itself. From talking about creative projects to establishing a structure, what I appreciate about Dionte was his honesty of what he sees with Soul Classics and the industry itself, but the challenges of owning a boutique store and the subsequent obstacles as well. In addition to our conversation, he expanded what the future holds for them, as he touches on what to expect from not only the industry, but Soul Classics in general, with a second location in the horizon. Now let's transition to Soul Classics. We've been talking about it basically, but let's kind of focus in on that. We kind of already got the story about like how back in 2010 you became the owner of Soul Classics, but in those past 13 years from 2010 now to 2023, going into 2024, what have been the biggest lessons you've learned from like a business owner standpoint?
Oh man, we need to restart this conversation. I would say the biggest piece of advice or the biggest thing I can attest to ownership is don't approach anything as if you know what's going on.
Mm,
Like, you have to be willing to constantly evolve. And I think
mhm,
so many people get stuck in their ways or they get stuck to what they're used to or stuck to what they're comfortable with that they forget that the world outside of us are changing. You
mhm,
have TWA Airlines, who are the largest in the world, who doesn't exist anymore. And we have
mhm.
that goes on no matter what example that you give, a Blockbuster or on down. So if you're not willing to continually evolve and reassess this industry that you're in, I do think you'll start to fall by the wayside. And next, you'll be chasing it as opposed to
Right.
leading it. So my biggest thing is you don't know everything. Continue to learn, continue to grow. You're blessed to, not obviously be struggling to figure it out. Like, just know that you're not alone with it. So, that's my advice that I give on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
what it is. It's like continue to evolve and just understand that other people are going through it too. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
And then I guess like what are some like opportunities that you want to try and involve Soul Classics with right now? Have there been things that you've thought about, like even creatively, structurally, operationally, just like are there things that you keep thinking of being like, I want to try and implement this next?
yeah, so we got a laundry list of things we're doing over the next few years. People have to understand that retail is completely different than what it was.
Hmm.
Yes, brick and mortar is important. Yes, I love it. I'm a physical touch person. I still like print magazines and newspapers and stuff like that. Like, I love the digital world. Don't get it twisted. Like, it's cool to have access to so much, but there's nothing like being able to physically walk into a store. However,
Hmm.
we have to understand that that's changing for the majority of the world. Not everybody
Yeah.
is that type of person. So, our biggest thing is that, without letting cats out of the bags, is continue to figure out what our growth plan is. What are we evolving into? What things can we shake free from? What do we have to invest in? And we want to be on the forefront of retail and not really stuck in old traditions and habits.
So just continuing to evolve and just seeing what naturally progresses for the shop and for the brand itself.
Yeah, like you're going to see the great retailers evolve. Like it can't just simply be, let me walk in here and grab a t-shirt. Those are still, again, like I said, it's still important, but it's not going to separate you anymore.
Right.
So those are the conversations that we're having. And it's not to say that anything is an easy solution or even that we have the right solution, but the fact that we acknowledge it and we're willing to take the risk on it is important.
Right. Just having that conversation, knowing that, it's going to change and you're going to have to continue to evolve is important to have now. With Soul Classics, I think what's unique about the shop in comparison to other retail spaces is kind of like the brand selection of the store. Just even like you go on the website and you see what brands are there, you can find like just Jordan Retros to even brands like Marnie. And then you can even have like growing streetwear companies like Awake New York. How did you or, your team in general, like curate that brand selection and make sure that it aligns with the values you have at Soul Classics?
So I will tell you this. This is one of the areas that I got to give my hat off to the team more so than myself. Like brand assortment has been strictly buying and presenting them to me in
Hmm.
the grand scheme of things. Like I'm aware and I know what I want to carry. However, it can't be my closet. You know what I'm saying? Like it can't have a store that's just things that I like or that I'm aware of. So our lead buyer, Mario, has been doing a great job at just hitting the ground running and taking risk on things. And not everything wins. There's a lot of losses in these battles, but we've been adamant about carving out our brand mix to where we can have something that we feel like is sustainable. So it's been dope to watch that team operate.
Right. So it's like, again, are they kind of more focused on that relationship side and building that trust with brands to kind of like curate that mix a little bit more and that assortment a little bit more?
Yeah, and I would say the relationship side isn't as hard as introducing stuff to the market. So,
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants to carry the best of everything. And we may understand something 5 years before the rest of the city gets it. You have to be in tune with what the people need and are asking for and be able to push things forward while still making sure that the company's profitable. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the ever going challenge. And like for us, I don't come from a background of retail. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
open buy plans and all that stuff is not common knowledge to me. So, to have people that are continually learning yet finding ways to win is key and it's been what's helped keep us afloat this long.
Yeah. You said that like you might have something 5 years before it hits the market and becomes popular. Could you name like a trend or a brand that you were carrying at Soul Classics and it became a trend, became this huge thing? You're like, man, we've been having this. Like, we've had this for so long. Like,
Yeah, man, it happens like that all the time. Like fashion is very cyclical. Like for example, like we carried Maharishi. I'll give the old owners. We carried Maharishi was one of the first brands
right.
we had when I took over the shop. And then it was dormant for a while, and we had to battle to get the account back. And then next thing you know, people want $400 Maharishi pants. Like it's crazy to see that thing go in circles. Like I really love what we were able to do with Vans.
Hmm.
It's been around. Obviously, everybody knew about the brand. However, that wave that they really caught when they were on fire everywhere,
Yeah.
I will say that I was so grateful that we were already on the foresight of that as opposed to trying to catch on because we already had an established clientele. We already had people that were looking at us for that. We had the ability to collaborate. So it's dope to be in that seat. But I think everybody chases that. Like that's fact. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to be on what's next and always be able to say we had it first. But very rarely are you actually correct. Sometimes you just accidentally get it right.
It's luck of the draw sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes it's,
People, it's luck of the draw more often than not. People
yeah.
give themselves too much credit in this industry. Like, nah, bro.
I think Rob is always so happy when like we'll get like a delivery of apparel and he'll look on the website and be like, "Oh, things all sold out. Like, let's go. Like, we picked
Yeah,
the right things." Like, he's always so happy with that. So
yeah.
you must be the same.
Absolutely.
What about for you personally? Like, what's like some of your favorite like even brands like items at the shop that you have right now?
I really love what the Wick has going on right now. Like, I think
Yeah.
everything that they have going on about the brand matches my personality personally, so it makes it a little bit easier. But they're putting together quality, and it's not like
Hmm.
super overpriced. It's unique to them, and I think they're working on some very special things. I saw, like might be working on with Jordan Brand and what have you as
Whoa.
well. So I think they're going to continue to blossom into being, a power, when it comes to the
Yeah.
industry.
I think it's just like Angela Bach is just killing the game right now, honestly, with Awake. And just like, I feel like if you look in the past few seasons of Awake, it hasn't changed as much as it is now as they keep growing, like their brand staying the same. They're not really following too many trends. They're kind of like sticking with what they know and what they like are good at. And people are recognizing for that. And I think that's like what's great about brands like that, which they just stick with what they know, or not stick with what they know, but stick with their
Well, they are.
values.
But for me, that is the sign of a brand that is going to have longevity because those are the like if you understand fashion, like let's just strip it all the way down. It's going to go in cycles simply because of fashion forward people. Like if everybody decides to wear runners today, if I'm fashion forward, I've got to go and put on some basketball shoes or whatever that needs to be, or a court shoe.
Hmm.
Or in the same thing with apparel. Like if everything is dark today, I got to be the first person to go put on a tie-dye t-shirt because that's what fashion forward is. So a brand to sustain time, you want to understand there's going to be ups and downs when you're not trending in. But if you
Right.
stay true to your core and your base without trying to always chase the dragon, then that cycle is going to cycle back around and you'll be back
Right.
right back where you are, or you'll have such an established, clientele base that it'll support you even in those downs.
Nice. Yeah. Something I want to touch on a little bit more is your creative side. One of the first things I remember when I was doing my research on you, just like looking around, kind of diving in, is that short film that you had or that you guys created, Skylight.
Oh, for the for the influence sideline, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
thought that was one of the coolest things that a shot could even do. Was that something that you had thought of before? Is that something you've always wanted to do? What was that like for you, man?
Nah, man. So, like, one thing I will always hold my hat on is I feel like I got 1,000 ideas up top at all times, at the time. So, and I'm not gonna pretend like it's all me, but yeah, like I don't feel like they're, how people like try to hold on to their ideas because they feel like somebody
Yeah.
else, yeah, like you can have it. I got another one. So that opportunity actually came about because Jordan Brand asked, they've been doing a great job at launching these neighborhood partnership
Hmm.
projects. And the Skyline Air Jordan 1 is a neighborhood, only product. So like sneakers didn't get it,
Yep.
Nike.com didn't get it and whatnot. So they came to us and it was like, yo, this is the story. This is what it's inspired by. Pretty much do what you want. Basically it's yours to do. Most of the time it's tough to be in that situation because you don't get that much time. So we just wanted to try to like shake it up. I kind of knew where our peers would go. We can get very redundant as an industry. So it was
Hmm.
like, let's make a short film to kind of paint the picture of what we see on a day-to-day basis. And
Nice.
we came up with the idea. We executed as best as we could, and I think it came out amazing. Um,
Yeah, it was sick. Yeah, I thought that was like so unique. I literally have never seen that before. So, and then when you were in it too, I was like, oh, that's Dionte. But again, I asked this about Look Ma No Hands, but I also wanted to ask you this, like, man, for 13 years, you've been, in the shop, you've been helping day to day, even now helping out with higher end stuff and bigger end stuff. Like, what has that been like for you to have those experiences of seeing so many different people from so many different walks of life come into the shop and like interact with you, interact with your staff, interact with the product? Like, what has that been like for you? Is that something that's just been so rewarding for you?
Yeah, it has been, and I would say it's eye opening more so than
Hmm.
anything else. Like for somebody to want to come back and spend their hard earned, like I don't take this for granted. Like we're selling sneakers, we're not selling toothpaste or deodorant. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not what you need, it's what you want. So if you want to come and spend your money on what you want with us, of all people, then that means we're doing something correct to get you through those doors. But I'm a firm believer, just be good to people. So you never know where you're going to cross paths with somebody. Again, you never know where they're going to lead in life, and not even for that, like just put some positive vibes into the earth, even if you don't see the person again. So I would like to believe that that's been reciprocated times 100, and we're going to continue that motto until the world implodes. So, but yeah, just be good to people, and that energy gets reciprocated.
Right. We're gonna slowly wrap up here, but yeah, man, I'm someone that loves to know what you guys think about what's gonna happen next. So for you, Soul Classics, Look Mono Hands, Canvas Consulting, like for all those different projects you're a part of, what are some goals you have established for each thing for the next maybe year, few years, whatever you're thinking?
Yeah, so right now we are heavy with all of our teams with structure.
Hmm.
So we've done a lot by just on a whim, like, yo, I text you today, let's make a sale flyer, and we're being more, and this is whether you're talking Look My No Hands, Canvas, everything. We're really been using these last 2 years to get very, very organized and structured because we do have some big things that we're working on. So
Right.
Classics door number two, Canvas is growing like a weed. For that to have started in 2017 and the type of clients and things like that we have in that standpoint, like we have to make sure that we build the teams and the structure that are going to catapult us, beyond what we're doing. And then like for me, it's big for me now to make sure that I don't have to be the decision making and driving force for everything that I'm involved in.
Hmm. Right.
Empowering everybody around me to be able to do their jobs and have the tools to do it. So structure, structure, structure. You want to see that for another year. And then from there, I think we'll have everything we need in order to take over the way that we want to.
Nice. And then what about for yourself personally? Like, end of 2023 and beyond that, like what's some personal goals that you have for yourself?
Man, to spend as much time as I can with my kids while they're young. As crazy as it sounds, like everybody growing up always like, yo, enjoy it now because it happens quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm off the grid as much as I can be right now, like
Yeah.
and all that stuff, because I'm really with my family. And then when they get to having their own friends and don't want to be bothered with dad, then I'll be on scene a little bit more. But as of right now, like we're going on a family trip to Paris in a couple weeks. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
we're trying to get out and get active and spend those moments together. But yeah, that's me. That's the legit me as of right now.
Yeah. Coaching your son's football team while they're
Yeah,
young.
yeah. So I was coaching. I don't think I got the patience to really coach little kids, but if the coach needs me to help out, I am. I need you to have some type of knowledge. But it's trust me, it is entertaining and fun to watch my kids grow and start to learn and become, fans of certain things, and especially sport, because that's what I know.
Yeah. Do they ever get like frustrated with you being like, no, dad, like I don't want you to tell me like how to play?
My oldest son in particular, like he
Yeah.
doesn't he loves my support. Like he's the type of kid that, like, if he makes a shot, he's gonna look over for dad. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
But
yeah.
he does not want me to coach him. So I'm cool with that. I'm gonna be a fan and a spectator, but it's really hard not to let it ooze over from time to time.
You like rethink like when you were playing, you're like, oh man, I gotta get back out there. Like
Yeah, and it's like I don't think coaching is gonna leave my DNA. Like I love it.
I mean, dude, you as a leader isn't gonna leave your DNA ever, honestly. You're so always gonna be kicking it. But man, Dionte, it's been so nice to talk to you, man. Before I let you leave, let you off, what can the people like look forward to from you and from Soul Classics? Anything? Like what can they expect from you guys?
Soul Classes has some, like I said, we got some really cool stuff in the works. Like we with some key partnerships. Door number 2 is in progress, and it is
Hmm.
not something we're not trying to look to expand just to expand. Like we're looking to be in some key impact areas. So that's on the look.
Right.
First Cut and Sew collection is in the works, that like legit from scratch, not some relabeling or some, make a jacket here or there, like a legit line.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been busting our tails to make sure that we build a brand that lasts longer than I'll be around. So yeah, so we're doing putting the things in motion.
Nice. And then where can the people find you, man?
So if like you said earlier, if you want to see everything I'm involved in, you can go to DionteJohnson.com or follow me, Dionte Johnson, on Instagram. And then you can splinter off into whatever rabbit hole you want from there. But it's
Man, you'll
DIO.
get lost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, that's 2 ways you can find out more about what we got going on.
All right. Thank you so much, man.
No, I appreciate you. Like, thank you for the time, and it's always a privilege and a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. Once again, I'm your host, Andrew, and I want to thank Dionte for taking the time to speak with me today, and to Sam Wallner for creating the music you heard on today's episode. This episode was all about how to be the best version of yourself for your community and the teams around you. So if you know anyone looking to learn about creating for themselves and establishing themselves, share with them this episode. You can find me and the shop on Instagram at Andrew Inamoto and @_August Shop. And find August located on 414 State Street, Madison, Wisconsin, or on august-shop.com. Once again, thank you for listening to the August Forum.